Hey y'all, James Roy here, aka M1 Texans fan, and I'm rocking my Space City hat because yesterday the Astros won in the Space City uniforms. Who'd have thought? But I'm not here to talk about the Astros. I'm here to talk about the Texans. I'm going to call it a 10-minute Texans talk. So let's get into it. The topic today is Nick Caserio's press conference. I'm going to try and analyze it without saying a million words and saying nothing at the same time, which is really a lot of what happened during this press conference, though we did get some big moments. So let's take a look. If I'm being honest, there was some part of me that kind of expected this press conference to just be one huge nothing burger, to include addressing the fact that before this press conference, Nick Caserio had not spoken since rumors had started circulating about him leaving Houston. And so I almost kind of didn't expect him to address it. There was some part of me that thought maybe the New England in him, or maybe the kind of person he is just like, I don't need to address that because it's so obviously not like noteworthy, I guess. And the way he does address it kind of feeds into that. He's just like, it's kind of embarrassing that I even have to say this. And then he goes on to reference Wolf of Wall Street and say, I'm staying. I'm here. This is where I'm at. And so it was nice to see that Nick, is here and actually strongly desires to see through what he started, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think Nick Caserio gets enough credit for the good that he's done for this organization. I think that when you weigh it on the grand scale of good versus bad as a GM, he comes out neutral or maybe slightly positive as a GM. And he has the opportunity with this draft and with progression from the previous draft to possibly establish himself as truly good, if not great GM in the coming years. So I hope that nothing but the best for what happens this year and for the talent that we drafted last year. Now, Nick addressed that he's staying, but other points that he brought up that I'd kind of like to talk about are, well, for one, he was asked directly about the S2 test. I saw throughout the YouTube chat that on the live stream that everyone was begging someone to ask him about it, and someone obviously was at least kind of paying attention to it, or maybe they were smart and thought to have that question ready. And I can't remember who asked the question, so sorry. But it was interesting to see, and I have it pulled up right here, actually. So with the S2 test, he was directly asked about it, and I'll actually read it to you. It was a really short statement. He said, "I would say each team has different tools they utilize. Candidly, I don't want to speak on something I'm not familiar with. We're aware of it. I think we have some other tools and resources that we utilize. So again, I don't want to really speak on something that I don't really have firsthand knowledge. I respect the question, but I think we have other tools and resources that we try to utilize as a part of the process." And so with that, it was brought up on Twitter that only the Colts and the Titans subscribe to the S2 test, which isn't to say the Texans couldn't see the score results. I don't really know what the difference is in that. I couldn't really find any more than, some people saying the Texans can see the scores and others saying that only the Colts and Titans can. But either way, from what I get from this paragraph, it would seem as though Caserio is caught up on other things. He believes they have other tools that they use, and so he's not. I don't want to say he's not concerned with the S2 test. There's really a lot to unpack with this particular statement because of the emphasis that Twitter GMs have put on the S2 test, and there's other people, right? Like when that news broke, and when I can't remember, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah like accidentally disclosed Bryce Young had the highest S2 test. That people started really talking about this like it's the next Wonderlic, like a test that's going to be the end all be all in deciding things. And so even I fell kind of victim to putting a lot of weight on this test, or at least my ears perk up when I see that someone has a good score on this test. But at the end of the day, some teams view it differently than others, and it's become apparent that at least Caserio, if not, I have to assume it's organizationally. Maybe there's some couple people in the organization that really have a heavy hand in viewing it, but for the most part, I get the impression that the S2 is not, what's deciding what their pick's going to be at number 2. And that brings up the next really big thing that I pulled from this press conference, who we're going to pick at number 2. To say that I gleaned what we're going to pick at 2 is me acting like I know more than I do. There's 2 distinct questions. Now, obviously, quarterback came up a lot, but there's 2 distinct questions that kind of, I don't know if they made me doubt. I think it's Nick showing his poker face, which people are overemphasizing to, prove their point one way or the other, either to say that it's so obvious we're picking a quarterback that this is obviously a bluff, or guys, it's so obvious that the defensive edge talent at the top of this draft is there that it should be obvious to anyone that Nick is telling us we're not picking a quarterback, or even that he's telling us that we're trading down from 2. I don't think we truly got anything from this, but I'll read you the answer that stuck out to me. The question, is it possible you guys can come away from the draft without a quarterback? And everyone hung on to the first 3 words. Anything is possible. I think that it's possible, and what the hope is that we can come away from this draft with good players we think can help our football team. That's what we're focused on doing. And so obviously anyone who doesn't want us to pick a quarterback at 2, which is I feel like a very small portion of the fan base, but Twitter emphasizes every minority, majority, anyone who has an opinion on Twitter, it seems their opinion's getting thrown on my Twitter log. I try not to make too much of it, but a lot of the arguments that I'm getting from that part of Texans Twitter is that when he says he wants to come away with, good football players, that he's knocking the quarterback class. There's already rumors circulating that Bryce Young is the only quarterback the Texans want from this draft class, which I guess I could buy. But either way, I don't think that this tells us really much of anything. I think this is a bluff, if you will. I don't want to say it's a nothing sandwich. I think that what it tells us is that Nick definitely is playing the cards close to the vest, which is what we want him to do. If you're a Texans fan and you have any interest in us having the upper hand in the draft, you want Nick to say stuff like this, because it's going to lead people to believe one way or the other. They'll start following that rabbit hole like everyone on Twitter is. The only person he's probably not fooling is the NFL executives. Honestly, he's not giving us anything, and I'm hoping he's not giving them anything. But for all I know, they're looking at this the same way I am. It's just a bluff. It's his poker face. The last thing I'll say about the press conference really just addresses the last question. Now, quarterback was asked about a lot during this press conference, and I know that's not surprising because the Texans have really a couple of big needs. Though I'm not saying, okay, the roster has a lot of needs throughout, but quarterback, based on positional value, is the biggest need for the team right now. And so the last question kind of stuck out to me in asking, it sticks with this theme of, hypothetically, say we don't take a quarterback in this draft, like what does this team look like? How do you feel about doing that? And instead of trying to quantify what his expectations are, or really give the media anything to go on, once again, Nick plays it close to the vest. But one thing I noticed is that he kind of, in a good way, now as someone who's worked in an environment with supervisors who have been, both great and sometimes have fallen short, I think this is not a bad way to kind of put it on D'Amico. But in his answer, he says it's going to be a reflection on the coaching staff as to how the talent is utilized to win. It says right here, I think it speaks to the players, their commitment to what we're doing, commitment to winning, to getting better, to the coaching staff. It's a reflection of D'Amico Ryans and the coaching staff, a reflection of people in the building. That's what we're focused on more than anything else. So he's not excluding himself from this, but he's really saying the talent we're going to provide is going to be there. And really it's about how we as an organization utilize it that's going to affect the win total, and not just if we draft a quarterback. Once again, some people might try and take that as, we're drafting a quarterback, or we're not drafting a quarterback because we're going to focus on the talent in the building and building a roster that's talented. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Well, guys, thanks for listening. I've been James Roy. I've got my link in the bio, so that you can click on the link in bio and find out where I am. I'm usually more active on Twitter than anywhere else. So if you like talking sports, follow me on there and we can talk sports. Until next time, this has been a 10-Minute Texans Talk. Thank you.